Welcome aboard the dopamine train, where our ADHD-powered locomotive stops at every shiny thought along the tracks. I'm Obi-Wan, and with my co-host Rome, we explore various topics and see where the conversation train takes us. We're live. All right. Hello, Rome. It's been about a month. We just finished an episode with my good friend Maria Clara, who is Brazil, and I thought let's follow this theme of Brazil and hear about Rome's trip to Brazil.
I have been putting off this episode for so long just because it's probably the single craziest point in my life, and I've always struggled as a storyteller, and I've been afraid to do it justice. Like, it sounds strange, but part of why I got into content creation is I wanted to build up my skills talking about other things before I felt like I could effectively discuss that. And fortunately, I wasn't the only one who experienced it. I went through it with, a few dozen people, actually. Most of them are in Brazil now, but my partner's dad, he was the closest friend I made when I was there. So I guess to provide a little context for what I'm about to talk about, I worked on my very first movie, and technically it's not my only movie at this point. I've done background for other projects, but first movie with a principal role where I was acting and also producing. And it completely changed my perspective, not only of the film industry, but also how I saw myself and the trajectory that my life would take. There were a lot of rude awakenings, a lot of successful moments that I experienced when I was there, but it was unlike anything else. Now I have kind of an outline of the story laid out that I want to go through, but I just wanted to see if there were any questions you had right off the bat before I start rambling about the whole thing.
So my context that I remember when you were down there, and then there was radio silence, and then we found out the story later, in a sense, because of what was going down, and you needed to be on your stuff, in a sense. I know we're talking in general, so specifically, I think my first, I know you have an outline ahead, but who was the key person that got you into this producing acting role? How did you meet them, and the nature of that relationship?
For sure. So the catalyst behind this whole thing, his name is Serge, and he was an independent producer. I don't think he produces currently. In fact, sounds so strange.
I wonder why.
He, last I heard, he was running a PMC in Brazil.
What's a PMC?
For anyone who doesn't know, that's a private military corporation, which is mercenaries.
Oh, that's a turn of events, huh?
He has some military connections, which I'll talk a little bit about in regards to the film. Granted, this was 2 or 3 years ago, so I don't know if that's still the case. But there was an article published in a Brazilian the news outlet, and it was an interview with him talking about his experience basically running a mercenary outfit.
That's wild. My ADHD brain's I want to know more, but I also want to stay on task and get to the story, in a sense.
Unfortunately, I don't know more beyond that. That was the latest update. But I haven't heard from him since. And granted, while it was a very tumultuous experience with him in Brazil, I do sometimes miss him. And Ted, my partner's dad, the person who I got closest to while we were over there, he'll sometimes express the same sentiment. As crazy as Serge was, we miss him.
We
Um,
always miss the crazies, right? Crazy girlfriend, crazy parents, crazy boss. So,
yeah, because I mean, in some ways, it brings a sense of excitement to the otherwise monotonous nature of life, the
mhm,
repetition of it. And I'll tell you that with Surge, it was never a dull moment. That's for
for
sure.
sure. So,
Especially, being a 20, early 20 something, like I had no idea what I was in for.
right. So, when did you meet Serge?
So I met Serge at the end of 2018. So I guess I should talk about what led up to that. So I graduated from university a year prior. So 2017, I graduated, and it was that was a weird time in my life because my dad passed away 2 days before there's the graduation ceremony, and his funeral was the day after. So it was a combination of a sense of accomplishment mixed with the one of the biggest losses in my life. And I know some people can relate to this as well if you have pets, cats, or anything like that. I had two cats since elementary school. They both passed away that same year, too. So it was just a, a time of pure devastation. But also, it was the year that I produced my first short film, and it was one of the most gratifying experiences of my life. I was taking a stage combat class, and most of the people for their final, they just found a spot on the campus and they recorded and turned that in, like it showed them doing fighting. But myself and the other actors that I was paired up with, which I think was intentional, because my acting teacher, who's actually a director who cast me in one of his projects, I think he picked out the people who would be most suitable for helping me create something really amazing. And we all decided like we were going to script this out. We were going to go out to the desert. We had drones. We had a makeup artist. We like went all out. We spent a couple weeks rehearsing. I came up with the choreography. They helped collaborate on it, and we were just super gung ho about the idea. And that was I remember sitting in my bedroom with a Surface Pro 3 tablet, like this tiny little tablet, using the trackpad to edit this film. And it took me, I think I sat down and just did it for 12 to 16 hours straight. Like it was due at one point, and then I wanted to make some adjustments to it. And also, I was a new editor. Like I had Adobe Premiere for maybe 3 years at this point. So I had a little experience, but I was learning everything from scratch as I went. And that was my first narrative project that I was editing that required me to basically chain shots together, if that makes sense. Before I had done like music videos, abstract type things, and that sort of deal. But I worked on this project, and it was just like nothing I've ever experienced. I was so proud of myself. And it was the last project my dad ever saw before he passed away. Which actually reminds me of a thing he said. So the last couple months of his life, he was on hospice. And it was very hard for my mom and I because we're basically just watching him deteriorate over time. It looks like, there's no turning back. It's not going to improve. We're just waiting for the end. And luckily, his nurses were very kind. His caretakers were super sweet. But I'll never forget. I remember I was in this room. Granted, it looked much different at the time, and he was sitting next to me, and I was either watching TV or playing on my Xbox or something. And the nurse came in and was like tending to him, and he said something. I don't remember his exact words, but he said something like, he pointed to me and he goes, "Remember his name because you're going to see him on the big screen one day." and that like really struck me. And my dad and I had been at odds for quite a while. So to have that kind of validation was nice, but it was also a ton of pressure. There's a ton of pressure. And, I won't get too wrapped up in the details of when I actually lost him, but, I was in the room. My mom was also in the room. And I wanted to emphasize to him that I had everything under control. I was going to do my best. I was going to take care of mom and, basically accomplish what he said I was going to. So he passed away. I graduated, and then I spent the next year and a half working my ass off to get every audition I could. I didn't care if it was a student film, a music video, just anything, anything. And that was insanely hard. Like, it's so, being an actor, like auditioning, it's like, I mean, anyone can relate to this who goes out and applies for jobs. Like, applying for jobs is hard, but once you get the job, it's like, okay, well, at least this will last me a while and I know I'll get paid. But being an actor is like applying for jobs, and there's this insanely low chance you get it. And once you do get it, it's not for you to get paid, and it's not going to last. You have to do it again the next weekend. In fact, while you're working on a gig, you're applying for more. So it's no wonder why most people give up on it, because it's insanely hard. And I remember for a couple months I had zero success. I finally booked my first acting gig. It was at the Pasadena Arts Center, which is a beautiful campus. And the director for that project, I still keep in touch with him to this day. He's a rapper, and he's a clothing designer, and he does all these like clothing designs himself. And he had this abstract dark trap style music video, which at the time I was super, super into that music. So, it's just an aside. I really connected with him on that audition. But most things were just kind of fly by night. I was lucky if I ever got paid. I was just happy if I got a gig. And I started to realize after a while, I'm like, this is kind of a waste of time. If I'm auditioning for student films, this like, maybe that's resume material. But a lot of it is just kind of, I don't know, it seemed nonsensical until one day. I was just completely random. I got an audition for a music video, and it was taking place in Sun Valley. So Sun Valley is it's like an hour and a half from where I live. It's kind of by where all the studios are. And so I go to this studio where the audition is being held, which that's not out of the ordinary. But when I walk in, there's no setup for anything. Like there's no camera or tripod, or there's cyc walls and stuff, and you would set up for shot. Yeah. And there was just a bench. Like there's just a bench in a waiting area. And so I go and I meet up with the producer, which, by the way, the notice for the audition was put out by this gal. I forgot what her name was, but she was there, and she was probably my age, maybe a little younger, and she just looked absolutely flustered, like just so anxious, and I felt bad for her. And this was kind of a foreshadowing of what I would end up experiencing. So, so she's like running around, and then there's this guy. He's this tall Eastern European looking man, and he's sitting at the bench, and I'm like, are you Serge? And he's like, yeah. You Alex? Come on, sit down. And so I go and sit down, and we start to talk a little bit, and then someone else enters the room, and that's Ted. That's the guy that owns the studio. So I'm like, what? I'm just like, what is happening? I'm so used to normally with an audition, you walk in, they identify who you are, and then you go up, you record your piece, whatever. There was no prep involved for this audition. I sat down at this bench, and he was like, "Tell me about yourself." And I said, "Well, I'm an actor. I have I submitted for this because it was a stunt gig at the time. It was asking for someone to do flips in the background. I was like, oh, I can do that. And so we're just chatting for a while, and he's like, do you have any, like ambitions, like any projects you've worked on, anything that you've done? And I said, well, actually, I just completed a music video like 3 months ago, just by chance. I worked on a music video with this artist named Game Face. He's based in the Netherlands. I was just a huge fan of his music. I reached out to him and was like, hey, I would love to make a video using your songs. And he sent me some of his merchandise to use in the video. And so I did that. And I just so happened to finish editing that like a couple months prior. And so he's like, oh, well, I'd love to see your video. So I showed him the link, and he watched it. And I don't know, like something shifted when he saw that. He was like, oh, like he was planning something, like he was considering something. I was like, well, I suppose this is good, man. Like, I'll get the job. And he told me that he's like, okay, well, we'll see you on the day of the shoot. Like, all right, cool. I'm
How
like,
bizarre.
yeah,
So
it's very strange.
didn't see any of your like skill as an actor except through this video, which I presume that you put yourself through, and then
Yes, I was in the video.
was like, looks good to me. I'll see you tomorrow. What?
Yeah, yeah. He was like, well, he saw and he was like, oh, he's like, this is really interesting. Like, this is great. Okay, well, I'm looking forward to having you.
It reminds me of a previous job I had, the interview process of which I showed up. We were talking back and forth. Are you interested in the industry? I was like, I have no experience, but I'd love to become a manager and such. And then was like, can you show up on time? And I was like, yeah, sure. Can you pass
Yeah,
the drug test? Yeah, sure. Well, we'll see you next week. Pass the
perfect.
drug test. And it's
Yeah.
like, what?
Trust
So
me, it gets weirder than that.
it gets
It
weirder.
gets
Oh
even
God.
crazier.
So there
It
were
gets much crazier than that.
all right. So comes up the next day. The foreshadowing has been had with this poor young lady who's the casting director who didn't really do the casting. It was actually Sergey. And we'll see you tomorrow. Go on forth. Tell us more.
So I get to set, and there's a pretty sizable cast there, and it's a amalgamation of models, actors. There's another guy who knows parkour, free running, martial arts, and there I could feel like there was a different atmosphere to this set. Normally, I just show up. I might meet one person or two when I'm there, and then I just kind of move on, never speak to them again. But everyone was like really, really friendly when I got there, and I was connecting with more people than I'm accustomed to. So, so we're there. Ted is there with the camera. He's prepping, and we're on standby. The background are on standby, and we're supposed to wear all black. So I brought a costume at this point, but then Serge at some point walks out to all the background and makes like an announcement. I'm not quite sure what he says, just like, okay, we're getting ready to shoot in the next 20 minutes or something like that. And he's like, Alex, can I speak to you for a second? I'm like, uh, sure.
How
So
bizarre.
we're by the way, we're shooting in this mansion in Beverly Hills.
Cool.
So that's just to give you an idea of what
Yep,
the set looks like.
mansion. We're in like a large banquet hall sort of thing, and then Serge comes up to you and says,
We're in
"Alex,
a
get over."
we're in a living room. We're in a
Even a living room. Okay.
everyone's sitting on couches in a living room, and there's like all these I don't know I don't know whose house it was, but there were like signed memorabilia everywhere from like different films and stuff.
Cool.
So he's like, "Can I speak to you?" And so we go to there's two bedrooms, and one of the shots is taking place in the master bedroom. And so we go in there, and he's like, I was thinking, um would you we have a couple different outfit options for you. Would you be willing to try these? And I was like, yeah, no problem. He's like, okay, if you go to the other room there should be a rack, and like all of those are laid out. I'm like, okay. So I go, and there's like a black leather jacket, and there's like some other black accoutrements, and there's some goggles and these sorts of things. I'm like, okay. So I try these on, and he comes back, he checks, and I'm like, what do you think? He's like, yeah, that looks great. It's like, okay, cool. He's like, I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna feature you in this shot. I'm like, okay, yeah, that sounds great. I'm like getting excited at this point. I'm like, okay, I have no idea what I did to earn this spot,
Right.
but cool. Yes, I'll be featured in this shot.
Sign me up.
Yeah, so I go out, and waiting for a little bit longer. And at some point, I don't remember if this was later or when, but it's a hilarious moment. But Ted, who again is my partner's dad, um,
Mm.
this was the first time I ever spoke to him. And I remember he was setting up the camera, and I went over, and I made some comment or asked some question, just trying to kind of like show that I kind of knew a little bit. I mean, not nearly as much as he does about cameras, but that I kind of understood. And he looked at me with this expression that was so scary and so intimidating. That was like, why are you speaking to me? I was like, okay, I'm never saying anything to this person ever again in my entire life.
It's like you're trying to shoot the shit while the work's happening, and the dude's like, "I don't want to talk to you."
Yeah, that's exactly how it felt. Lo
I'm
and
working here.
behold,
I'm working here.
lo and behold, he would end up becoming one of my closest friends down the line. But anyways, I thought that was a hilarious start to that interaction. So we're ready to shoot, and we're about to do a scene, and the scene is literally he's in his room, he's in the master bedroom, he's looking very like glum and sad, and he wants me to, which by the way, the music video, you could see all this in the music video. So it's it's just hilarious thinking back to it. So I go in, and I basically try to cheer him up. That's my part in the scene, and we shoot that a few times. It's just I think we have some background moving around outside, but we do that shot a few times, and he's happy with it, and we go on standby again. And then this sort of theme continues. He like says, "Hey Alex, can I come talk to you? Or can you come chat for a second?" I'm like, "Sure." He's like, "Okay, so here's what I'm thinking. What if we both walk out together, and then we enter the kitchen bar area?" And so suddenly there's this dynamic where I'm like one of the supporting character in this music video, which again, I'm like, all right, fine, that's cool.
Sign me up.
And this continues throughout the day until we get to nighttime. So this is probably about a 9 or 10 hour shoot. And we get to one of the night scenes, and he hands me a sheet of paper. And I look at it, and it's lyrics to the song. So this is a music video for his. He makes like synth type music, but he's the vocals
Oh,
on it. Yeah,
interesting. I was just like, I don't know if we painted that picture for the audience. So basically, you auditioned for a music video that was Surge's,
mm-hmm.
and as the time goes on, via just, oh, he saw your music video, liked it, that you created for this creator, and considers you an expert in a sense, even though you've only done this once.
I mean, I've worked on a couple, but yeah.
Oh, not to like take away from it, apologies, but that's what I was like. The vibe I was getting was like young college student right out of school, has had like 2 years in the industry trying to work his craft, and then all of a sudden this guy is like giving you the Judas Prudence, I think is the right term, in a sense
I'm
of,
not familiar with that actually.
yeah, we'll have to look it up later and see if I use that correctly. Um, Not Judas Prudence. Let me ask it this way: better, like, considered you one of the people that's a seasoned person in a sense.
Yeah. Well, I think it was more so I'll put it in Ted's words. Ted was like, Serge just fell in love with you. Like he thought you were, I don't know, he found some sense of inspiration, hope, like you seem like a go-getter, and he really wanted to utilize you. Um, because I don't know, he just saw something in me. Uh so anyways, he hands me this sheet of paper and it has the lyrics to the music, and he goes, "Hey, do you think you can memorize this?" And I'm like, "But I'm not a part of this group. I'm not even a singer. I'm not a musician." And he goes, "Oh, it's fine. Don't worry about it." And that's the thing that with Serge, like you could tell him the most dire circumstance, like an explosion just went off on set, which actually happened, and he'd be like, "Oh, it's fine." Just
It's like blind optimism almost, right?
yeah, he's like, "Oh, yeah, it's no big deal." Which I learned a lot from, believe it or not. Not because, I don't care about anything now, but I had grown up very sort of what would you call it? Straight, like everything should be perfect and straight laced or whatever. And like we went to like I think about high school and how specific everything had to be, and Sergio's just like, it's not a big deal. So it kind of taught me to
Whatever, bro.
loosen up a little bit.
Lighten up.
Yeah. It's like nothing is really that serious. I mean, some things are really that serious, but most of the time it's not as serious as we make it out to be.
Right.
But so I was like, yeah, okay, I can memorize this. And he's like, you don't have to sing. We're just recording, so we're gonna play the song,
Mm-hmm.
and you lip sync the words. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Yeah. So we got all of and I kind of glossed over because there's nothing really. We did the stunt shots earlier, and it was a lot of fun. And he would ask me, he's like, "What do you think we should do here?" I'm like, "Well, what if you go this way, and I'll do a side flip over you, and then we end on this side of the frame." He's like, "Yeah, let's try it. That sounds great." And we'd ask Ted, and Ted's like, "Sure." And I mean, Ted was the one who constructed basically all of the shots. He's the real of everyone there. He was the real mastermind of all of this. But we get to the night section, and it's basically just shots of Serge and I, like saying the lyrics, doing different poses, things like that. So I'm like feeling super confident about this whole thing. And so we wrap up for the night, and I speak to Serge. I'm like, "Hey man, thank you. I really appreciate you having me on this production. It was a lot of fun. And, I hope we can work together in the future." And he's like, "Hey man, can I talk to you for a sec?"
Oh my god! So is everybody like, "Hey, can I talk to your set? Get extra responsibility" is the theme.
I well, I mean, yes, there are
Hey,
definitely
can I
other
talk to
points.
you for a sec? And it's like, because
I'll
my
tell you this, Obi-Wan, there are other points in my life completely independent of this experience where, "Hey, can I talk to you for a sec?" did lead to the exact same thing. So yeah, that is kind of a running theme there.
running theme for Rome. Can I talk for you a sec?
Yeah.
Promotion.
So So we step outside,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember thinking like, oh my god, this feels like a scene straight out of a movie. He has a cigarette. He's smoking a cigarette, and he's like, so what are you trying to do? And I'm like, well, like I said before, I want to be an actor. Like I want to make things. I want to make a living off of it, and I want to be successful in Hollywood. Doesn't really say anything. Just kind of looks off into the distance stoically, and and then he says, "Cool, man." And he's like, "Well, we'll be in touch." He's like, "We'll be in touch." And by the way, just a side note, because I think it's hilarious. One of the models on that shoot was someone who I talked to for a brief amount of time later that year. And long story short, it was a horrible dating experience. I made a video talking about that dating experience. And to this day, that is my most viral YouTube video.
That's wild.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just a lot of random things that came out of this that are still like here with me today. So um he's like that's the end of our contact, and I assume at this point I'm used to the idea like, okay, you say thank you, and you probably won't hear back again, but
Mm-hmm.
hopefully there's a small chance that you will. And it just so happened that this was that small chance that I heard back. um so I don't remember if it was a text, a call, or an email or whatever, but he reaches out to me and he says, hey, I have some thoughts about some upcoming projects, and I'd love to sit down with you and chat about it. And I was like, okay, cool. He's like, meet me at this coffee shop in Burbank. Like, okay. So I rush over to this coffee shop, and it's just him and I. He's dressed super casually, and I don't know what I was thinking, like it was a job interview or something. But I got there, and we sit down, and he starts talking at me like just one thing after another, and I can't keep up. At some point, I have no idea what he's saying. I'm just nodding my head. Basically, he was explaining to me that he wanted to start his own studio using a film projection technology that hadn't quite been proven yet. Ultimately, today we don't really use it. We use uh, what's it called? The cine walls. We use it's basically video walls. They use this to shoot Mandalorian, where you can generate a very realistic background for a film. It looks like it's on location, but it's actually using an entire video wall. Basically, what Serge was suggesting was an alternative to that used projection technology.
Hmm.
Now, like I said, I had no idea what he was talking about. I was nodding my head and going, yeah, whatever, man, that sounds great. Where do we get to the part where I'm either in the shot or what am I doing?
Am I working with you or not? Like,
Yeah. And as I'm half listening, at the very end of the conversation, he says, so how would you feel about being chief creative officer?
what?
And I'm
So
like,
man talks at you for like a good 20, 30 minutes. And then
it's
all
an
it
hour. Actually, it was an
out.
hour.
So talked at you for an hour. Great. And then was like, so you want the job? And you're like, my reading comprehension skills were not through this. But also, sure. What was your reaction?
I was like, come again? He's like, well, I said yes, obviously. I was like,
Right.
sure, of course, I'll be your chief creative officer. But I remember thinking, like, this guy just hired some kid to do stunts in the background of his film, and now is asking him to be an executive. Like, I appreciate the faith that you have in me, but it makes me question your judgment a little bit. So I was like, sure. Yeah, I'll be your and I made a video talking about this story. I remember going to get gas, not that same day, but like a couple weeks into this job, and I was just or no, or was it the same day? I don't know. There were two different gas station incidents, and I don't remember when each one occurred.
Mm.
But there, I remember being on the phone with him, filling up my tank, and I was just so flustered, so anxious, so nervous about my responsibility that I like pulled out of the gas station. I backed up and hit someone's car.
Wow.
Yeah, like I just backed up, and I wasn't. Normally, I'd be like, "Oh my god, like this is that would be the defining moment of the day for me." But I was still on. I got out and I was still on the phone, and the guy was like, "Oh man," and I said, "I'm sorry, dude. I'm still talking on the phone." And I go and I look at his car. There's no damage. I look at mine. There's no damage. And he just kind of is like, he like shoos me away. I'm like, okay, I'm really sorry. I'll see you. And I get in the car and I keep driving, and just it's like nothing happened. I just it's like it was just such a weird state of being that I had never experienced in my life. So anyways, I start this job, and it's a lot of like kind of busy work.
Right.
I'm looking up cameras for shoots and small things here and there. But here's one sort of like really weird thing. It's like we'll get a look into Serge's personality. There were fires happening in LA at the time,
Mm.
and he was out of town. I think he was in Brazil at this point, and he goes, he's like, I have some stuff over there in LA in storage near where those fires are happening, but I'm concerned that the fires may be intentional. I need you to research Geiger counters because I want to do some scans and see what the radiation levels are. And I was like, right on it, boss. So I started researching Geiger counters for like 2 or 3 days. And I put together a spreadsheet, a list. He asked for a spreadsheet of Geiger counters.
What
And
are
so
Geiger counters?
Geiger counters are devices that allow you to measure radiation levels. They're the things that make the little
Right,
snapping noise.
right. Yep.
Yeah. So I looked up a bunch of those and I sent them over to him. And mind you, this was a lot of work for me. I like spent a decent amount of time researching these. And he looks at the list and he goes, yeah, I bet none of those actually work anyway because they're consumer grade.
Oh my gosh, the foreshadowing that keeps coming up is crazy.
Yeah. So it's an interesting character. There's another point where I told him, I'm like, look, if all of our workflow is on Mac, I kind of need a Mac. Like I need a MacBook Air or something, which I'm looking at it right now. It's the same one.
Still got a Mac out of the whole experience, huh?
Yeah, I got a Mac. But what was interesting about the Mac was he ordered it for me, and his name on the receipt was different.
What was his name on the receipt?
The name it was like a Russian last name versus Levin was the name that he normally went by, Serge Levin, but it was like I don't even remember how it was spelled, but it was completely different. And I'm like, is this guy like a secret agent or something? So yeah, it's like all these little oddities. And I remember talking to my mom and thinking like, I don't know what I'm doing. This feels so wrong. Like this doesn't feel like it makes any sense, but I don't know what else to do. Like I'm getting paid. This was the first job where I was getting paid more than like any job I had ever had prior. And I was like, why? I can't stop, right? like I mean, he hasn't asked me to do anything illegal yet, so like I guess I'll just try. That was another thing too I completely forgot about was when I initially got hired, he was like, so what's your price? Like, I don't know. I'm like, I'm an actor. Like, I don't know how. I looked up what a junior executive makes, and it's I don't remember what the annual salary was, but it was like $7,000 per month, basically. And he goes, oh, that's a little steep. And like it basically met it. For 6 months, I was he would ask me to do something, I would go and work on it, and then I would just submit a report at the end of the month of what I worked on, and then I would get my salary. And I was like, what?
So you're making about 80K for this, man, from this. Wow.
Working part, yeah, it well, we'll talk, there's some shady stuff with that later. But
Okay.
yeah, so anyways, I'm doing all this busy work for Serge until eventually one day he says, look, I have a really big project in mind. I'm thinking of shooting here in Brazil. We've been scouting locations for a while. We've been trying to book a crew, and I'd like you to be a part of it. Would you be interested? And I said, of course. I'm like, what do you need me to do? He's like, well, you'd help me produce it, and I also I want to give you a principal role. I'm like, this is it. This is my big break. Like, this is what I've been fighting for all this time. Like, finally, it's here. And he's like, okay, well, here's what we're gonna do. I need you to get Danny Trejo. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I think he'd be a really great fit for this shoot. So let's try to book him. I'm like, oh, okay. So I I looked up Danny Trejo, who he was represented by. I called their front line, their desk or whatever, and I said, "Hey, I'm working on a film. We're looking to book Danny." And he's like, "Okay, well, Danny's represented by Gloria." And I'll talk about Gloria in a sec. Oh my man, talk about a scare, just like an intimidating individual. He's like, we'll get you set up with Gloria. Are you a SAG signatory? And I'm like, well, we're in the process. I was filling out the paperwork and stuff. He's like, okay, yeah, well, let's stay in touch. We'll see if we can get an appointment for possibly booking him. So, and mind you, at the same time I'm doing this, I'm still teaching. I'm teaching parkour to kids part-time and stuff. And so I'm like caught between this insane world of working for Surge, and then I come back to my what feels like a normal job at this point where I interact with the kids and I'm like, oh, they're just keeping me grounded in reality at this point. It's so strange. And so eventually we get a meeting with Danny's agent, and I remember going in with Search. He and I both went in there, and thank God he was in there to talk, because this lady was like, suffered no fools. Just, if you didn't have your story straight or exactly what you were going to give them prepared, it was like, get out of my office. It was like Meryl Streep in Devil Wears Prada, that same kind of energy. Mm-hmm. So Serge went in there and he did his Serge thing. He just like taught, answered every question. It's like, how much is he getting? What, how many days is he needed there? And he had it all figured out. I just kind of sat there trembling the entire time. So we ended up booking him, and I thought, great, this is awesome. I'm going to be acting in a movie, and I'm going to be acting with Danny Trejo. Like, bro, this can't get any better. There was a point. I kind of wish it had come true, but Serge had actually made 2 films here in the U.S., like small budget films, and he actually worked with Michael Ironside in one of them. And I was like, oh my God, that'd be so cool if we got Ironside. And Michael Ironside actually expressed interest, but things just didn't work out schedule wise and such. So unfortunately that didn't happen. We were looking at some other talents. I think it was the guy who played Spawn. I don't remember his name off the top of my head. But he was going to play character.
Wesley Snipes?
No. That's Blade.
Oh.
Spawn, the actor who played Spawn, Michael J. White is that actor. And I think the problem was he didn't want to play a bad guy. He was going to have the antagonist role. So We so we basically get everything moving for Brazil, and we book my first flight in January of 2019. So just to give you an idea of the timeline here, I met Serge in August or September of 2018. I worked on that music video then. By January, I was going to Brazil.
Wow.
So it was just like a whirlwind. And at the same time, um, I was seeing someone who was, well, back then I thought, that was going to be my fiance or whatever.
Mm.
So there was I was dealing with a lot. But I remember flying over to Brazil. I was a little apprehensive, but I was also excited. And we got there. I met the director. I met with Ted. Ted had already been there for a week. And Serge was like, um, he's like, hey, we're running into some difficulties here. The crew, they're trying to shortchange us. They're trying to screw us over. We need to find a new one. So we're going to bring everyone back when the time is right. So I flew to Brazil for 5 days to do nothing and then flew home.
Wild.
Yeah. Yeah, I just. And now this is the part where I got a little concerned because normally Serge would be in regular contact. He'd be asking me to do things here and there throughout the week. Um, and then there was just radio silence for almost an entire month. And I was like,
Wow.
oh no. He's like, he doesn't like me anymore. I'm no use to him. He's realized that I'm a phony. So he's like, just whatever. He's moved on.
Mm.
Until randomly in late February, early March, he's like, okay, we're ready. We're gonna fly y'all back. I'm like, okay. So I pack my bags again, get ready to go to Brazil again. And it I get my hotel. I'm staying there. We're getting ready to prep for the first day of shooting, which is at an ecological reserve. Okay, so but very, very lush jungle. One of the most beautiful places I've ever been to be quite honest. And there's a native village. So this entire village set has been constructed to look like a native tribe is living there. And basically, the protagonist in the film he airdrops like it's Fortnite. And at some point he gets injured. He's basically Rambo fighting these clandestine paramilitary guys, and he gets injured and he gets taken in by this native tribe. Who the head of that tribe is Danny Trejo. So we're getting close to shooting with Danny, and let me tell you this: the single most stressful 5 days of my entire life was having Danny in town because one, he was there with his assistant, and two, I was the point of contact with Gloria, the Devil Wears Prada lady.
Mm.
And she was on me. She's like, does he have late check-in? Does the hotel meet all of these prerequisites? That he had a laundry list of things that he required. And I was the sole person responsible for them. And half the time I'm like, I don't even know how to get this done. Fortunately, we did, but as you'll find out as we continue, there were lots and lots of issues with the shoot, lots of miscommunication, and lots of information I didn't have. So when Gloria was pissed because Danny was complaining about something that hadn't been met, I was the first person getting called and yelled at.
Mm.
So that was very difficult for me. By the time he wrapped, I remember, well, I'm getting kind of ahead of myself. A couple steps back. I think at some point he started to realize like he didn't know what was going on with this shoot. The people back in LA didn't know what was going on. So they wanted to get some more information. And the
Fair enough.
way this happened, so I was responsible again for the SAG after paperwork, which meant that I had to get signatures from the SAG actors indicating that they had met their 12-hour turnaround because they're only allowed to work certain hours. And so I had to basically chase them down. And so I went to Danny's hotel to meet up with him in order to get that signature. And it was like an hour and a half drive from the location that we were shooting at to his hotel. Most of us I was staying on set. Like there was a lodge there that I was sleeping at, but he had to be at, a 5-star hotel, which the only one was in Rio, and that was an hour and a half. So he would be driven back and forth every day. So I go to his hotel, and I'm in the lobby waiting for him. I let his assistant know, like, hey, I need to get this signed. And Danny comes downstairs, and I'm like, hey, Danny, how's it going? I just need you to fill this out. And he goes, hey, how's it going, Alex? He gives me a big handshake, and he goes, let's eat. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, let's go have dinner. I'm like, oh, all right. I have a driver outside waiting for me. And I message the driver. I'm like, you're going to have to give me a sec because I don't know what's happening right now. And admittedly, I think I was also a little starstruck at that point.
Yep,
like,
I would be too.
This guy just asked me, Danny Trejo just asked me to have dinner with him. So we go, and it's a nice restaurant. It's like an Italian, it's, Sofitel is the nicest hotel, or one of the nicest hotels in Rio. And so they have one of the best restaurants down in the lobby. And so we go and we sit down, and I'll never forget, I'm sitting in my chair. His assistant is sitting across from me, and Danny is sitting to my right. And Danny doesn't really talk much the entire time. The people in the restaurant obviously know who he is. Like the waiter walks by, he's like, hey, how's it going? He waves, and he's friendly, whatever. But I'm sitting there at the table, and I'm actually having more of a conversation with his assistant. She's talking about her family. She's asking me what my goals are, kind of like what I discussed with Serge. And I'm like, well, I'm a working actor. I'm helping produce this film. And that's when her and Danny start kind of like shooting questions at me, like, who's backing this production? What's the deal behind it? Like, who's Serge? All these sorts of things, which, to be quite honest, I didn't really have the answer to most of those because I didn't know either. I wasn't informed on a lot of that. And I tried to answer as diplomatically as I could, like I had the situation under control. But I could tell that it felt like a kind of a mini interrogation, if you will. So at some point, Serge texted me. He's like, where are you? I'm like, Danny just asked me to have dinner. I'm like, he was like puzzled. He's like, why is he asking you? I'm like, I don't know. Just asking me a bunch of questions. And at some point, the driver's like, we gotta go. And so, I think I sat with him for 45 minutes to an hour, and we just hung out. He asked me stuff. I would ask him something once in a while, but he's like just kind of quiet. And at some point I'm like, this was really nice, but I gotta go. My ride is waiting for me. And they're like, okay, have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow. And so I went and I just sat in the car. And I remember messaging my mom and my girlfriend at the time, like, Danny Trejo just asked me to have dinner. And it was a crazy, crazy feeling. I mean, I felt like at this moment, no matter what happened, life was going to work out. Like whatever I set out to accomplish, it was going to happen.
Right.
Because the odds of this particular instance occurring were so absurdly low. I must have manifested this somehow. I don't know. And maybe it was the drive that my dad had given me or something, or just sheer dumb luck. But I was like, this is just an unbelievable circumstance to be living in this very moment. I'm sitting in the passenger seat of a vehicle driving through Brazil in the night after I just met with an actor who I'd seen on screen when I was a kid watching Spy Kids. And yeah, words can't really describe it. So fast forward to when he's leaving, which is a few days later. Um, he has the script set for the day, and I every night my job is to go through and highlight the lines that Danny needs to memorize, so that I can forward that to him, and then I send the newest version of this, or I'm sorry, I send the sides for the day to the cast and crew, so we all know exactly what sections we're shooting, and I send it to him. But then Serge tells me, it's probably like early afternoon. He's like, we're going to need to do more. I'm like, oh, fuck. Okay. All right. I'll go tell him. So I walk over to Danny's trailer and I'm like, hey, Danny, how's it going? I was like, good, Alex, how are you? I'm like, I'm all right. So I just wanted to let you know, we added a couple more things to the script. And the first thing he's like, oh, shit. He's like, well, am I going to make it out of here in time? I'm like, and I'm like, I just start trembling. I'm like, yeah, it's just a couple more sections. He's like, well, if I'm late, that's on you. And I was like, okay, no problem. We'll get it we'll get it sorted out. I step out of the trailer. I walk about 15 feet back towards the set, and I just break down crying. I just like sobbing. The costumer, Lara, she walks past me. She sees me, and she immediately comes over and she gives me a big hug. And she's like, "It's okay, it's okay." And yeah, there are some other not so pleasant experiences on that set, which I don't want to get into particularly. Maybe at another point I'll have the confidence to talk about that. But long story short, Danny's cool at some points, but not always. And this, I don't remember. I'm pretty sure this was the last day because he was stressing out about leaving on time. He wanted to be able to wrap up the shoot, go back to the lodge, take a shower, and then head straight to the airport. And Gloria calls me and she's like, what the hell is going on over there? Like, Danny is supposed to be done, and I hear he's still on set. His assistant just told me he's still on set. We're getting him out of there right now. And so, by the way, a little more context. Whenever Danny goes from his trailer to our location to shoot, it's a 3-vehicle escort. So it's 2 vehicles with bodyguards and then 1 vehicle in the center that he's in. And granted, the trailer is literally like, it's a 5-minute walk from where we're shooting, but these vehicles have to go every time back and forth. If he's not needed, then he goes back to the trailer. And so these same bodyguards rush over to the set, and in the middle of the shot, just take Danny and are like, he's done. He's not doing this anymore. And so then they pack up and they leave. And I'm like, good riddance. Thank God.
So we went from starstruck to like, this man is famous, knows he's famous, and can utilize that like power and authority to get whatever he wants, in a sense. Is that a fair interpretation? Or,
you know what? Screw it. I'll just say it. There were some issues between him and Serge on set because he was interested in bringing one of the underaged background actresses back to his trailer. Serge says to me, he's like, Danny's been a real pain. He's now doing this. I'm thinking about taking some legal action. And at the time, I was like, please do not include me in this. I am
Right.
so scared. I am just barely starting to see some kind of like future in this industry, and I don't want it to I don't want to make 500 enemies from the get-go and just have
Right.
my, because Hollywood is all about reputation, and if you ruin it, you do not work. So I was so scared. And granted, from a morally, the right thing would be to call out this sort of behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just so frightened at the time, but also it was not. I don't think Serge was calling it out because it was wrong. It was more based on his frustration with having to deal with, a well-known actor who had lots of requirements, who was really expensive. But I've never felt comfortable sharing this publicly. This is the first time I've ever said it because Danny has a reputation of being this like lovable old guy.
Mm-hmm.
And, my relationship with that path in Hollywood has changed. And so I'm like, you know what? Yeah, he's one of those guys. Um, and
Wow.
I know the actress. She was. We had a bunch of actors who were playing the native villagers, and she was. She was one of the background, and he was like, he was flirtatious with her, and was like, I'd like her to go back to my trailer. So that completely
Did
that
he say
changed
that
my
to
perspective.
you?
No, he didn't say that to me.
Oh, okay. So it's like secondhand you're hearing this, but also like I'm assuming from
Oh, I
her.
saw. Oh, I saw him flirting with her.
Oh, okay.
But I didn't hear those exact words. He said those to someone else, but I saw him flirting with her.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's unfortunate,
yeah.
but it seems to be a if
It's a
we've
common
learned it,
theme.
it's a common theme. If I have power, I can get away with it.
Yeah, it's common in the movie industry, and if anything that Jeffrey Epstein has informed us, it's common everywhere. Apparently,
Common
with
everywhere, and
places of
it's like
power.
who's the other famous one from Hollywood that barely can walk now? It's Harry Weinstein.
Harvey Weinstein.
Oh, Harvey Weinstein. Ew.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Well,
I
he
don't.
was the one. He kind of was like the catalyst for the Me Too movement back in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
He was the biggest offender, and in some ways, you look at everyone's relationship to him at the time, and you're like, You start to wonder about them too. Not necessarily that they were doing wrong things, but they,
Guilty by association, right?
well, they had an idea. They know how things go in that town.
And I'm sure that like maybe like yourself, if you go up against this power, right? There's a fear that they can fuck up my life so much
And
for
they
something that is so insignificant in terms of their grand scheme of things, right? Because
they
like
yeah.
because like that whole situation, right? That's just a footnote on his career at the end of the day.
Mhm.
And so, and for y'all, right, that are just trying to make it, this is like make or break. This is we go left or go right or we're fucked. And this
Mhm.
is for him like I'm just having fun.
There was a what's it called? There was an interview, I think, with Danny that talked about the number of movies he's done. He's done like, oh gosh, I don't. It's like 300 plus movies or something. There are points where a scene will come up that he's in, and a family member will point it out, and he's like, I don't even remember doing that. So,
Wow. And the other dynamic, right, for that is he's probably done this before. And so then Gloria, who you're talking about, and the assistant, who are both women, there's that whole other dynamic that we don't have to get into because I want to make sure we get the full story out.
Mm-hmm.
But they're complacent in the thing too. They're contributing to that as women. And so that's where it's like there's a whole other dynamic we can discuss and peel away the layers on in terms of like they're allowing this to happen. And it's kind of like this is reminding me of my history degree in terms of when we studied, not to go to extreme, but like I don't want to, I'll just say it, Nazism in terms of like when bystander relationships, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
they're a complacent bystander, therefore they're part of the problem in a sense.
Yeah.
Bystander dynamics is very interesting to me. And yeah. But anyway, so he was doing those nasty things. Serge was like, this dude is costing me money, and they're getting, and then the bodyguards come in
and they get,
saying, we're in the middle of the shoot and just like, we're done. And
yeah.
it's like, what? And I'm assuming these guys are big macho dudes.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And you're like, well, fuck, I can't do anything about this. Like,
nor do I want to. I'm like, I want him out of here as soon as possible. I'm like,
and I'm sure the young lady did too. Because that's horrible.
Well, she didn't speak English, so I don't know if she was she knew, I mean, I'm sure she could tell that he was flirtatious, but I don't know if she knows what he said per se.
Oh, okay. So she was she was speaking Portuguese.
Correct. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Only
so
Portuguese.
Didn't he even speak Portuguese?
No. Not so, that I don't think so. No.
Oh. So there's even a language. Oh God, what a situation.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he gets abruptly taken off set. You're all in the middle of the shoot. You're like a sense of like, what the fuck, but also relief. And then what happens next?
So after that, things are not quite as stressful, but they're just like, it's the beginning of the end. So
this was a foreshadowing again.
Yeah. One small note that I can't believe I'm saying it's a small note, but one thing that happened on day one of the shoot was we had a director, and he's an award-winning director. I don't remember what he got it for, but we were all like, oh, great. We have this amazing director who's going to have a vision, take care of the movie for us. We fired him on the second day.
Wow. Was he not producing?
He just was not like, it felt anytime he was in front of the monitor, like looking at the camera, it felt like I was on a student film. Like I remember going back and forth between the native village and base camp because we needed props and like just like doing these errand boy type things. And at one point I'm about to walk away and he says, where's the native boy? We need the native boy. He needs to be in the shot right now. And I look at the monitor and he's in the shot. He's already there. He's standing there. He's like, oh, okay. All right. Let's roll the camera. Like, dude, what is going, you're an award-winning director and you're acting like we're trying to shoot your senior thesis right now. Not even a senior thesis, just like it just felt so amateurish. So I told Serge, I'm like, what is going on with this guy? Like, he just does not seem invested in this. And this was over text at the time. And he goes, yeah, you're right. You know what? He's becoming a liability. Go ahead and tell him he's done.
Over text?
He's like, I'm like, you want me to tell the director that he's done? He's like, yeah. And so I immediately go to Ted. And I'm like, Ted, Serge just told me to fire the director. And he's like, oh no. I mean, Ted could understand why, because he was feeling the same frustration too. But thank goodness I told him, because I don't know if I personally would have had the wherewithal to do it. I remember we were at breakfast in the lodge the next day, and it was a long table. The director was sitting on the end. I was sitting to his right. Ted was sitting in front of me to his left. And there's a little bit of tension there. Like the director Joe, he was a nice guy. Like he was nice to chat with, but beyond that, we weren't getting any work done. And I could feel that kind of shifted. And he says at one point while we're sitting there, he's like jokingly, "I bet you guys are, you're going to be done with me soon." And Ted and I look at each other, and Ted said, "That's kind of what is happening." And Joe kind of looks down, and he seems vaguely disappointed, but then relieved. He's like, "Thank God I'm off of this freaking Twilight Zone episode," because that's what it felt like. And I remember talking to Ted throughout the whole process and saying, like, is this really happening? Are all these things really happening? I don't know what's going on. And he goes, "Oh, okay, I'm not the only one." So I know that, we're not losing our minds or going totally crazy. So we fire the director after the second day of shooting. And so now we have no director, and Ted is basically doing most of the heavy lifting. And we do have one other SAG actress. Her name is Gloria Vatsis, and she is just the most incredible, wonderful human being. She was on a show called White Collar back in the day.
Yep.
And she was great. Like she's just such a pleasure to work with, and to hang out with too. She was in most of the subsequent shots. So she played the love interest in this film. The film is called War on War, by the way. You can go on IMDb and find it if the page is still there, I presume.
What is it called again? One more time.
War on War.
War on War. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And so Gloria is doing most of these shots, and the scene takes place in a Jeep. So the protagonist, Serge, is in this Jeep with Gloria. And one kind of major oversight is that Gloria doesn't know how to drive stick. The Jeep is stick shift.
Oh, sorry.
And mind you, while she's acting, we can't have her driving. Like we need her to be able to focus on the performance. So Ted basically rigs up this ingenious thing where a truck is in front of them. It's towing the Jeep, and the camera is set up in the back of the truck. And that way they can shoot, they can get the front perspective of the Jeep. They can get all kinds of angles from it. And so, but the problem is the setup for these two vehicles takes an incredibly long time.
Uh-huh.
So you might shoot 30 seconds of dialogue as the Jeep is moving. And then in order to do that, take again and reset, it's minimum 45 minutes.
Wow.
So we're burning through time, and we have a schedule in mind for how much we're trying to shoot.
Mm-hmm.
But we're never meeting our days. Like we're just, nothing is ever on schedule. So the crew is getting demoralized. I'm feeling like this is just not going to work out. It's like a car accident that's, right before the accident happens. And there was one point, now, mind you, I read the script before we ever went to Brazil. Like I looked at my character, memorized my lines, and there's a part where I'm cooking an omelet. And at the time I didn't know how to make an omelet. So I spent a few days practicing making an omelet. And there was a scene in there. There's an action scene where I wasn't held prisoner, or she was held prisoner. And I basically swoop in, save the day. I have this grandiose, I'm doing acrobatics. I'm shooting all these bad guys. And then at the very end, I die in the scene. But we weren't making our days. So I said to Serge, I'm like, look, this is this is a hard decision for me to make because this is like my big scene. But here's my thought. Can we, instead of having me do it, have Gloria break out of her shackles or whatever and take out the bad guys? Basically, just replace everything I do with her, so that we don't have to do the intro of my character arriving and all this stuff. Basically, I was trimming off the fat for parts of the film. And he says to me, "Who put you up to this?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, who convinced you to take out your own part?" I said, "No one convinced me. I'm just like trying to look out for the good of your movie." And he's like, "Okay." So we cut out a part of my scenes, and then we had Gloria shoot those scenes. And there came a point that those scenes I'm talking about, they're a little further ahead. I'm sorry, I'm jumping around, but I
Yep.
kind of just remember things as they come. But there came a point where we were almost catching up with our shots, and we had this beautiful shot of the lake right next to the native village, where the jeep rolls up, and Gloria gets out of the seat and she goes to look towards the village. And at this point, the stunt team had spent the entire day rigging the village with explosives because it was supposed to blow up in the next scene we were going to shoot. Like the bad guys come and they attack the village. Well, we shoot that scene where Gloria's getting out of the Jeep, and right as we're about to cut, or maybe we did cut, I don't quite remember, you just hear a loud kaboom, just a massive explosion. And we all like look over and we run to the village, and the main hut is on fire. Like, it's on fire. You know what Serge says? Roll the camera. so so Dan rolls the camera. He's like trying to record Serge. I don't know what he's doing. He's like rolling around in the mud, like pretending to jump like it's an action. It just doesn't make any sense. But that's not even the best part. The best part is the stunt team that rigged the explosives did not have any means by which to put out the fire. No extinguishers, nothing.
That's what wild. So you have this active fire going and no way to put it out.
In an ecological reserve. And so what do they start doing? Well, there's a lake nearby. They start grabbing buckets, throwing buckets on the hut. Well, that doesn't seem to be working. What's the next best thing? Someone grabs a chainsaw and starts cutting down the hut as it's on fire, so that it doesn't like reach the foliage, or hopefully the fire like collapses on itself. Now, fortunately, Brazil is very humid, and this is a wet climate in this particular area as well. And so the foliage is not catching on fire. It is all contained to the hut itself. But at this point, I'm like, we're done. We're not shooting anymore. Like, the production's over. This is too much. Because this space is being lent to us by the owner of the reserve. His son is the guy who runs it. And we see him all day, every day, as we're on set, because he's like inspecting things. So Serge basically tells the son, like, sorry, we kind of we kind of started a fire from an explosion. And the son's reaction is, you shoot tomorrow, it's okay. A part of me was kind of hoping this would shut down the production, because I was like, this is a circus. And
Right.
which, by the way, I need to preface that by saying the crew for this shoot were incredibly professional, amazing individuals. And most of them they all spoke Portuguese, but most of them spoke a little bit of English. And the fact that Ted was able to communicate with them and coordinate all these shoots, because most of the crew, like myself, Serge, and Ted, and Danny and Gloria, were the only people that weren't locals. So
Wow.
Ted is trying to coordinate all of this without He can speak a little Portuguese, but he's just like doing this crazy job of talking to the people who know the most English, so they could then talk to the other crew and then like translate it for them.
Wow.
So they're incredibly competent, but of course, language barrier always presents an obstacle. So when you have a producer who's like not really clear on what's happening, and that's hard for Ted, and then that's also hard for me, and then it's hard for Ted to communicate that, then it's just like things don't get done.
Right.
So that explosion happens, and then I don't remember exactly, but we wrap up shooting there, and we move on to a new location, which debatably is one of the, like, what was it? It used to be an, a nunnery or an orphanage. It was this huge structure that was like a Brazilian Hogwarts, and it
Oh,
was
interesting.
completely abandoned.
Wow.
Yeah, it was incredible. One of my favorite locations that I've ever been to. So we're there and we're filming, and I'm like, I don't really have much to do at some point, so I'm kind of exploring and hanging out with the crew, and I'm getting some GoPro footage and things like that. Um, but we one of the days we're like, oh, it's supposed to rain today, so we need to be careful. Actually, I don't even remember if we knew it was going to rain, but anyways, we're setting up for a shot, and um, he can hear the sound of the rain, and he's like, you can hear it like within 30 seconds.
Hmm.
It's like the rushing sound of the rain is getting really loud, and it goes from bone dry to raining so hard that the water is coming up to your ankles.
Wow.
And mind you, we're at an elevated position, so you have to like we take a bus up a hill, and it drops us off at
Mhm.
the location. So it's on high ground.
At what point, just so we have, how many days into the shoot are we at this point?
Maybe a month.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So Danny Trejo was the first 2 weeks,
First
and
first 5 days.
that's the amount of resiliency. I applaud you. My God. Because you had that, and then we're going in, we had the blow up.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, piecing it all together, we have this famous guy who are like really cool and then get a little vomit in the mouth because of the way he actually acts. And then we have this whole fire that happens on the ecological reserve. And you're like, why didn't we do fire extinguishers? And now we're in this torrential rain pour in an abandoned building.
Yeah. So at this point, Ted is like, we're not going to be able to shoot in this. Like, it's too much.
Mm-hmm.
So we start heading back to base camp. And so I don't remember how we worked out the vehicle situation, but we had, oh my God, I completely glossed over a really major detail. I mean, it's not that major, but after the explosion happened, Serge was convinced that someone was trying to assassinate him. So he
This
reduced.
guy's got to be ex-military, clearly, with the, like, what is going on? Because now
He,
he's a Brazilian mercenary.
oh,
Like,
there's another thing. Well, maybe I don't remember when this happened, but just bookmark the apartment moment. We'll talk about that. So he, so Serge is convinced that someone is trying to take him out, and he reduces contact with. He's like texting us, but very sporadically. Like, he's not messaging me nearly as much as he was before. And I think part of this is kind of a ruse for the fact that he doesn't know how to engage with the crew for what he wants. Also, there's an issue with money that will come up later, that has to do with this kind of like ghosting thing. And so he has bodyguards posted up outside his room at night while he sleeps.
that's crazy.
Yeah, it just like so bizarre, so bizarre. Anyways, so we were leaving. One of those bodyguards is our driver
Mhm.
during this rainstorm, and Gloria's in the car, Ted is in the car. Serge is also, I think Serge is sitting next to me. Gloria's in the front
Different
seat.
Gloria than the Danny
Sorry,
Trejo one.
sorry. Yeah. So Gloria, the
Just want to
Danny
make
Trejo
sure.
Gloria. Yeah. This is Gloria Vatsas, the actress.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
Thank you. Yeah. So we're driving down the hill, and as we go down, the water's getting deeper. And we finally get to the bottom of the road, and the water is about to
Like a foot?
basically, if you open the door, the water is like just at the it was a pretty tall like SUV. The water's like at the railing, that the foot railing.
Oh wow.
So and we have to stop because a tree's fallen in the road. So Gloria is now freaking out. She's like, "Oh my god, what is happening? Are we gonna die? Like, what's going on?" The bodyguard gets out of the car, and she's like, "Oh, where's he going? Where is he going?" And he just walks over to this tree. And mind you, this guy, I don't remember his background, but he's like a professional fighter. And he just freaking strong arms this tree and moves it off to the side, like trunk and everything, while he's like knee deep in rain. Like, what is life right now? Like, how did I end up here? And so he moves it, gets back in the car. We keep driving. Everything's fine until we get to a tunnel, and the tunnel is just stopped. Like, there's no movement at all. And this was a pretty messed up thing to do, but one of the crew, did he text Serge or Ted? I don't remember. He texted one of them a picture of a car that was flipped and submerged.
Oh my
And
god.
and Gloria saw the picture, and she was like, "I need to get out. I need to get out and start walking." Like, and we're trying to calm her down. Like, "Gloria, it's fine. It's fine." And Ted was like really good about like trying to calm her down. Where eventually she started to relax. And after a while, the traffic opened up, which, by the way, anyone who's listening, if you think traffic in LA is bad, or you think that like the drivers are bad, just know that in Brazil, driving, it's like being on a perpetual racetrack. Like, the dividing lines on the road, completely ignored. Completely ignored. Like, very, very normal to watch a car lane splitting. So if like a car is towing the line on the left, another car is kind of towing the line on the right, that is perfectly normal for another car to go right between them in the middle of the next line. And literally have cars less than an inch away, like skirting past each other, and barely able to pass, and they're just honking incessantly. So it's like a free for all on the road by my standards, having grown up in LA traffic.
Uh-huh.
So it's pure bedlam out on these streets. And the crazy part is, we're getting close to the hotel. We're like in main area of Rio, and the stores are open. And you look over, like you look into one of the little grocery stores, and there are people shopping in there in knee-high water.
Unperturbed in a
Yeah,
sense.
just don't even care. Just
Wow.
knee-high water. And yeah, so that was quite an experience. The rain cleared up, and we went back and we continued shooting the next day. But the thing I wanted to bookmark was the apartment. So at some point, Serge was like, he was a real pain about trying to get us our accommodation, like our hotel. And at one point he goes, "All right, I'm going to have you guys stay with me." So apparently his parents have a flat in Rio, in Brazil. So they were out of town, like they weren't there. And I knew it was a family place because there were all kinds of pictures of him as a kid and like siblings on the wall and stuff. But the living room for this flat was just like, what? Like, there were artifacts from like African safari. There was a, I don't remember, I think it was a tiger. It, lion, tiger, or bear, I don't know. There was
Oh
a
my.
Oh my, there was a rug on the floor.
Oh,
That was one of those, and it had the face and everything.
yikes.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah. Lots of African memorabilia, statues, pictures, things like that in the living room, and it was just okay. At
Another
this point, I'm like,
foreshadowing.
I was just like, this is cool, I guess, whatever. Um, and Ted can tell you the story better than me, but at one point, um, we're trying to. He was trying to help Serge do laundry.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, it was just like, something I just take for granted, but he was. I don't know if he knew how to use it. Anyways, yeah, it was just, and he made a very strong point of making sure that um, we weren't there when his parents showed up. So there was a moment where he was like, my folks are coming home. We need to leave. And Ted's hypothesis behind this was that he had told them that he was working on a production. He was getting paid to work on a production, not that he was spending his own money on it. Now, this is all just hypothetical, like I said, but
Mhm.
um, that was the reason why it would look weird if the crew were having to stay at their house.
Right.
Um, so and there were other times where, like, dude, we would wrap up a shoot, and I would be like, okay, where am I going to bed tonight? And Serge's like, I can't worry about that. Like, talk to Breno. Breno was the local producer for the film, and I would talk to Breno, and he would be like, well, I need Serge's card. He's the one who has to authorize it. I'm like, so I have nowhere to stay. I'm like, I don't know where I'm sleeping tonight. And it was the same deal for Ted. Luckily, Ted was a little less flustered. Not, I shouldn't say a little less. He wasn't, and he could advocate for the two of us. And he's like, if you don't find a place for Alex and I, I'm going home. And he needs Ted because Ted's shooting the whole damn thing.
Right.
So he eventually books. He's like, okay, fine, kind of begrudgingly gets a hotel for us, and this process goes on every night, which brings me to
So
another.
where are we at in the timeline right now?
We're like, I would say, late March, early April.
So we have Danny Trejo. We've shot. We had the
We've shot for like
incident
2 weeks.
shot for 2 weeks, and then we
We
had.
finished up at the native village, which had the explosion, and we've moved on to we'll call it the compound. So the Hogwarts looking place is the compound. That's where we left when it was raining and everything, and that's the location where the crew is really getting frustrated with Serge.
Mhm.
Um, and I am too, because he's not really paying me anymore. He's like kind of
Mm.
arbitrarily deciding not to, and I say to him, I'm like, Serge, I need to get paid. And he goes, okay, I'll forward you the money. And he would do this thing where he would forward me the money, and then 30 minutes later go, hey, can you pay for this? And it'd be like someone's flight. Like, so it's not my money. You're just sending it to me, so I feel like I've gotten paid, and then asking me to do something with it. So there is this, oh my God, there's this whole fiasco with the talent. Where his friend, a close friend of his, was playing a he was playing the entire, well, the script changed. Oh my God, this is like such an exhausting story. So his friend is playing a role, but the friend who is from I forget, it's another South American country. He's not local, but he's also in South America. It's like a few hours flight. And he's in Brazil during all of this, doing nothing. Like, I'm at the ecological reserve. I'm at the compound. I'm like going through all these things. Meanwhile, one of the actors is on standby the entire time. Like, just at a hotel, not doing anything. And he's getting, I can totally understand, incredibly frustrated. So he tells Serge, he's like, look, if you don't have something for me, I'm going to go home. Like, I'm just done. I'm done with this. And so Serge is like, okay, all right, I'm sorry. And so he goes home. So we get another actor who is like really popular in, I guess he's popular in Brazil. And he comes over and he's learning his lines. And at one point he asks me, he's like, hey, could I sit down with the, his English isn't the best. So he's like, can I sit down and practice these with you? I'm like, sure. He's got this like fancy car. I don't remember what it was, but it was like, in my head, I remember it being like a McLaren. So he's got this insane car because he's like a big talent in Brazil. And I go and I sit in the car with him and he's just going through the script and I'm like helping him with pronunciation and like the sort of tone or emotion with these parts in the story. And he's like, okay. He's a really cool guy. Like he was nice to meet. Not long after, I'm told that actor has been replaced. So Serge has convinced the previous actor to come back to shoot his scenes. But here's the caveat. He's flying here to shoot for a few hours and then flying home. So,
That's crazy.
So he's just burning money, which brings me to that point that I was making. Like, he asked me to pay for the flight. So I'm like, all right, yeah, sure. Might as well. So I like pay for him to fly over. And
that's crazy.
Yeah. And so now he's doing that scene. Small side thing. Back when we were at the reserve, there was a moment where Gloria was long overdue with her shoot. Like, they had agreed to, I don't know, 2 weeks. And it was like week 3 or something at this point. And because I was the first point of contact with the managers, her manager's calling me and reaching out to me and being like, what's going on? Gloria needs to be home. She needs to come home. And Gloria says to me, she's like, Alex, I'm supposed to be leaving. Like, what's happening? And I said, I'm so sorry, Gloria. Let me talk to Serge and figure it out. Serge is he's in his room. And I go over and I talk to him and I'm like, Serge, there's another issue with the amount of days that we were shooting too, right? And the amount of scenes we had and what we could cover and what we couldn't. This was kind of at the same time when I made the script edits. I said to him, I was like, Serge, we're not making our days. There's too many shots here. We can choose to continue with the Jeep and then cut this other section, or we can just be like, we've got enough Jeep shots. Do this over here. What do you think we need? I'll never forget this. He takes a pause. He kind of like looks down solemnly. He looks back at me and he goes, all of them. Okay.
All of them, like all the scenes need to be done?
The shots, all of them. We need all of them. And so in the same instance, I said, Gloria, her agent is on me. Like, she needs to go, or her manager is on me. She needs to go home. And like, this isn't in their contract. And he goes, well, can you talk to them and see if you can convince them to let her stay? This is so out of my league. And I get really lucky. I'm so angry at this point that he's putting me on the spot. And I get ready to go out and make the phone call. And it just so happens that Gloria texts me. And she goes, hey, Alex, I understand there's a lot of stuff we got to cover. I'll talk to them and I will, we'll figure something out. And I'm like, thank you. So she takes care of it. She stays longer and we end up going to the compound. We shoot with the scene that I rewrote. We end up getting some of those scenes. But we run into another major issue. Turns out that Breno, the local producer, like the financier for the not really a financier, but he's handling the money for the project. He goes to the bank to deposit Surge's check for the crew. The check bounces, and he comes back to set, and he tells everyone what happened. And they start putting their stuff down. They're like, we're leaving. We're done. We're going home. And I'm like, oh God, what's going to happen now? Ted gives the speech of a lifetime. Like, gets all the crew. He's like, get everyone in here. I need to talk to them. And he has, I don't remember, Felipe, I think was his name. Felipe is like the best person we have to translate everything. Mm-hmm. Ted starts giving this speech about, we're doing incredible work. We've made a tremendous amount of progress. We're going to get the financial stuff taken care of. And, everything's going to be fine. It's like, like 10, 15-minute speech. And he's got like this energy behind it. And Felipe is giving that same energy behind it. And the crew are like, yeah, like they're getting on board with it. They're getting excited. And at the very end, he's like, okay, now let's get to work. And they're like, all right, awesome. They're ready to get back to work. And just at that moment, conveniently, Surge walks in. Well, we haven't seen him forever. Like, he just had kind of disappearing behind the scenes. He shows up. He looks at Ted. He looks at the crew. And he goes, what he said.
So this guy hijacks Ted's talk in a sense and says, oh, mine, yeah?
Well, it's kind of like, it's like, oh yeah, now I have no responsibility. Like, oh, that you've forgotten about the problem that I created? Oh, cool. Yeah, carry on. Keep doing your thing. Now, so we're shooting at the compound, and it's a lot easier to shoot here because it's a lot of scenes are indoors and things like that. This is the first time, by the way, I'm ever on a set with firearms. In fact, I don't think I'd ever heard a gun up close in my life until this point.
Okay.
Yeah. And some people weren't wearing ear protection. So I was like, oh, it mustn't be that bad. So I was on set during the first take with no ear protection. And I was like, I'm going to stand outside for the rest of these.
You silly man. But all right.
Yeah. So anywho, everything seems to be fine shooting at this compound, more or less, until we decide our next location. Now, mind you, one thing that we've kind of glossed over this entire time is Brazil is not the safest country in the world. Now, if you are shooting in the main area of Rio, whatever, it's not a big deal per se. Depending on what areas you go to, may or may not be a big deal. If you decide to shoot in a favela, it is your responsibility to contact the leader who owns that area and ensure
What's a favela?
Favela. It's the elevated areas that the poor live in.
Oh, okay.
They are all owned by rival gangs, and it's important that you contact the local person in charge to assure your protection and to make sure that, like, none of your equipment is stolen, none of your people are killed, because that's a real issue. And so Surge has the brilliant idea to shoot in it's like, he wants it to be like a war base, like, scene where basically that gets infiltrated. It's where the bad guys are. And it just so happens to be located in what is considered no man's land. It's a turf war area in Brazil. So no gang controls it, which means that there's no one to assure that you'll be safe. And it's one thing to go and scout when you are a group of 2 or 3, but if you're bringing 3 trucks worth of film equipment, I don't know if it was 3, that might be an exaggeration, but if you're bringing trucks worth, they're going to know you're there. And best case scenario, they know you're there and they kind of leave you alone. Worst case scenario, they rob us blind or worse. Yeah.
Right.
And at first I didn't understand the gravity of the situation. I was like, okay, well, that doesn't sound like a great idea. And Serge is like, oh, it's fine. It's no big deal. Until Lula, Serge's head of security, the prime bodyguard, the same man who was Arnold Schwarzenegger's bodyguard when he filmed in Brazil. When Lula heard where we were filming, this is the guy with like a shirt that literally says, I have a gun, and like has guns on his arms. He heard where we were filming. He goes, I'm not going there. And I'm like, if the guy with the gun says he's not going there, I don't know if this is a good idea. And Serge got really frustrated. He's like, like, I don't understand. This is a great location. No one wants to go there. And thankfully, we just never got to a point where we actually were able to shoot at that location. But that was a real concern for maybe 2 or 3 days. That was going to be our next spot. We were going to this incredibly dangerous part of Brazil with $500,000 worth of camera equipment. And I was like, I'm not going there. I straight up told him, I'm like, I'm not going there. Just fly me home at this point if you have to. So thankfully that didn't happen. And now we're getting, I don't remember if this was the last location or not, but we're basically at the last location at this point. And we're shooting a flashback scene in a karate dojo. So, he actually flies out an instructor of his to do this scene. It's kind of like a tribute to him, but we don't actually have a dojo. We're shooting in a gym. So we spend the entire day trying to make this dojo look like a gym. Also, we spend the first, I think,
the gym look like a JoJo.
Sorry, yeah,
dojo.
Make the gym look like a dojo. Yeah. Also, someone forgot the keys to the back of the truck, so that was like another hour and a half of like we had to get keys before we could even unload the equipment. It was putting up tarps all around and like posters. Oh, that was back before I went to Brazil. Serge kept asking me. He's like, "Do you think you could get this to the United States?" I still have it. I can go grab it if we want. Well, it's in my closet, but it's this big poster of his teacher, and he was like, "We need to get this poster to Brazil." So I printed it out here. I like got it done at I don't know, was it FedEx or something?
Kinko's.
Or Kinko's, and they told me it was going to be like $50,000 to ship it. And he's like, never mind. So, anyways, just another thing. We had these banners, this poster I had been staring at in my room for months, finally lined up on these walls. And there's a scene where they're fighting because it's like a sparring session, and one of the characters does a backflip. Now, if they had asked me to do it on the ground by myself, I would have said, no problem. You want me to do a backflip? Sure. But they rigged up this entire contraption that like threw you across the room with no mats, by the way. And they wanted, Serge mentioned, he's like, would you be down to do a backflip on that? And I just thought of what happened with the stunt team and the fire and all the things that have happened with stunt people in the past. And I said, you couldn't pay me to do that. Like, you want me to do a backflip? I'll do one. I'm not getting on that thing. And he's like, oh, fine. So, and the actor didn't want to do it either. Eventually they convinced, they had a body double who could do it. And it was the goofiest looking. So instead of the backflip contraption pulling you and him like flipping through the air back, he literally would jump straight up, flip like static in the air, and then go straight back down. So it's just
again, foreshadowing of the end, right?
Yeah. So it's just like we're just exhausted at this point, and and I made some. I mean, again, there's so many details that I'm just missing because they're not necessarily pertinent to the track of the story that we're going on, and I met some incredible people. I was friends with Jeff. Like we went off on our own and we'd film our own little videos and things. We have a great time. Just all these people who otherwise I would never have had the opportunity to meet. But we came to a point where Serge was like, okay, we're on standby. Like, we don't know if we're shooting anything else. Like, okay. So he put us up in a hotel for, this might have, I think it was another week. I think we were at this hotel for a week, and just not doing anything. Like I would pull out my laptop. I would work on my own scripts. I reached out to another friend at the time who I was directing for. And I said, hey, look, I've gotten a ton of great experience. We should get back on this project. So I was communicating with her, and just kind of doing my own thing. And then I would meet up with Ted. We'd go out for lunch. Breno would pick us up. He was a really, really awesome host. We would go to different restaurants throughout Brazil. And we came down to the last couple days, and Serge says to us, so the crew's contract, he didn't say this part, this just kind of happened at the same time. The crew contract elapsed, which meant that in order to continue shooting, we'd have to do basically another rehiring process. And I think Serge was out of money at this point. So he said, we're going to reach out to the Brazilian government to see if we can get a grant or something. And we're going to pitch what we have so far, compile the footage, and then we'll go from there. And we'll call you guys back when we're ready to start shooting again. Never heard back ever again. And I did actually hear back in the form of a cryptic email. I'll get to that in a moment. But that was a real disappointment, man. I went from, my dad had passed away. I was determined to make this work. I did it. We've made it. We're here. We are just barely scratching the surface. It's just like we're not even close. To think, you know all the movies that come out and are successful or not. You don't think about all the movies that are in the graveyard. And this was one of many and that I was a part of. And I felt like I was just so close. And I met disappointment at every turn, except in one way. And I'll talk about that in a sec. I just want to briefly cover the sort of cryptic email. So I got back to the US and I fell into a very deep depression. I was completely shifted my perspective on acting and being in the industry, and just felt like it was a colossal failure for me. And my mom encouraged me to take a class. It was a soap opera class with it was literally someone who worked in the industry. And so I took it because, it'd be another opportunity to make connections. Like I could keep going. I also took another acting class with it was Howard Fine, which was like very well renowned, but it wasn't with him. It was with one of his assistants. And that was wildly disappointing. And I'll tell you why. At one point, I was just like all those other students. They were in there. They were wide-eyed, bushy-tailed, excited. And this teacher would spout some vague inspirational nonsense about acting. And they would be like, oh my God, that's amazing. Let me write that down. And I was just sitting there like, you guys have no idea. Like, this is not going to help you.
Right.
Yeah. So it was a very frustrating class. I
could see that.
I took this class and I took the soap opera one, and it just felt like I was forcing it at this point. But I remember showing up to class. There was a parking structure underneath the building. Right. And I just looked at my phone at that moment. I had a new email Most of the communication I'd had with Serge when I was working for him was via email, so I recognized it immediately.
Right.
And he says, not to me, but to an unknown third party that it's being forwarded to me, or I'm being blind CC'd on, that he had gone to Brazil to make his magnum opus, this big project, and he had been screwed over at every turn, and just people were out to get him, and it was a complete disaster. And it was never clear if I was CC'd on it in a form of commiseration, like I want to keep you looped in on this, or if it was like, you're part of the problem. It's never
Weird.
never obvious. Last I ever heard from him was that email. He also CC'd Ted on that email, so he and I discussed it, speculated on what it could possibly mean, but we never really knew. But that happened. That was the end of it. And I remember going to a rehearsal with one of my classmates from the acting class. And on the drive to that rehearsal, I got a call from Gloria's agent, Gloria, the actress. Her agent called me and was like, hey, Serge owes us such and such amount of money. We can't get a hold of him. What's going on? I'm like, don't know what to tell you, man. I haven't heard from him either. Just like, I don't know. He's like, okay, we'll keep trying. There's a lot of loose ends that were not cleared up. And like I said, I was feeling incredibly down at that point in my life. And then COVID hit. Let's see, we wrapped up that shoot in end of April, and a few days later, I asked the girl I was seeing at the time if she wanted to be serious. If we wanted to be serious, that was a positive moment in my life. But that relationship got incredibly strained, not only by my depression, which was a lack of communication with her, but also when COVID hit, which was less than a year later.
Wow.
And not only was I no longer acting, but her and I were fighting and not seeing eye to eye on things. And a lot of it had to do with her relationship with her mom. And I remember like cutting off contact, or well, basically telling her I wanted to end things. And then a month after that, her mom passed away. And so
That's horrible.
I was just racked with I had gone from I'm making it. This dream is coming true. I am with this person who, by the way, I had known for a decade and finally had gotten the courage to ask out. And I'd gone from that to that relationship is over. Your career as you know it is over. And the world has completely changed. And the thing that really saved me, it was completely random. Jesse, our friend Jesse, sent me an Instagram post and he jokingly said, you should take this over. And it was an advertisement for kids to get involved in St. John Bosco esports. And I was like, I'm in. And, I won't get into all that. I emailed the head of that and he spoke to me and he's like, you're in. And I started my journey as a coach about a month after that breakup. So this was like summer of 2020. And that is when I really started to embrace streaming. And so I think what that whole experience taught me, there's more than just this point I'm about to make. But one of the biggest takeaways is I wasn't interested per se in being rich or famous. Like those were ego goals that I always had for myself, that I saw myself achieving. But what I really loved, what you could not get me to stop doing, was performing. You couldn't get me to not be on camera, to not be in front of a microphone, or to not be competitive. Um, you and I have a shared love of volleyball, and that's something that has stuck with me my entire life. Even if I never played that well when I was in high school, and I don't play regularly now, but it formed me in a substantial way. The other thing I took away was a realization that no one knows what the hell they're doing. Serge didn't know. I didn't know. We all have ideas of what we're trying to do. People may act like, Danny's agent may seem very intimidating, like she has it all figured out. And to a degree, with knowledge, you do have an advantage over other people with that knowledge. But big Hollywood movies, like I thought I was in this isolated situation. I have a friend who works for Marvel Productions regularly, and I described to him what I went through, and he goes, "Sounds like a Marvel movie." I'm like, "What?" And he goes, well, maybe not to the degree of like the explosions and things that were happening on your set, but the chaos, the miscommunication, par for the course. I'm like, wow, everyone is really just pretending their way through this whole thing. And I'm very fortunate. I got an incredible friendship out of it with Ted. He has been a mentor figure to me throughout my life. And never would have thought, I mean, this could be a whole episode in and of itself, but, um, you know, I met Ted's daughter, Zoe, on a music video, didn't think anything of it. And the very first moment that she and I made eye contact, the expression on her face was, he's mine. I just, and I was like, oh, whatever, that's cute. But she looked at me with like, no, he's mine. And it wouldn't be for years later because I didn't feel comfortable going. I mean, there is somewhat of an age gap between us. And also, this is my close friend's daughter. I'm like, that's not appropriate. But anyways, I could tell that story separately.
Mm.
She is the most incredible partner I have ever had.
Well,
Like, I can't think of the word right now, but every expectation, she has subverted every one of my expectations. And the trauma I've experienced from dating and relationships just like blown them out of the water, and just is unbelievable. So what did I get out of this whole thing, this whole experience going to Brazil? Is meeting her.
wow, awesome. No, so we spent a lot of time on this, and I just want to say a few things. Of it sounds like this journey, and at the end of the day, you took what you liked and discarded the rest, in a sense, what was useful for you, and moved on and such. And I just want to say thank you for sharing the story. And I think there's the lessons that I'm getting from learning is that um no matter what, people are just figuring it out as we go, and a lot of it has to do with chance if you make it right. Certain things have to come align to have it happen a certain way. And I think that's the thing, if I was going to take home, is that we're muddling through, we're trying to figure it out as we go, and hope to God that the people you're involved with have good communication skills and they can verbalize or write down what in turn they want, point blank. And that comes up, like, we could go on a whole tangent on like dating, relationships, working relationships, however, which we've touched on in the past a little bit. and happy to revisit. But in turn, for our listeners out there, we're muddling through life. Hopefully, you get some good connections along the way that make life worth living in a sense, and do what makes you happy. And at the end, that's what matters, is if you're happy, you're not doing what you're doing. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And at the time, I mean, like all of this was it was overwhelming, and you could probably tell by me retelling it now, I'm feeling some of those emotions come up again.
mhm.
But I remember my mom talking to me about this, and I was like, I'm not sure if I want to move forward with working with Surge, because my gut is telling me this doesn't seem right. But we sort of came to the joint conclusion that it didn't matter if it didn't seem right or not. It was an adventure to go on. And looking back, um, while it didn't tangibly lead to anything in terms of career, but nothing will ever replace the adventure I got to go on. Like, and that's to my point. My point with that is the journey is not clean or neat or put
No,
together. It's lots of crawling through mud,
right.
figuratively and maybe literally in some instances. It's yeah, yeah.
So, alrighty. I think that's a wrap. And I just wanted to say thank you, Rome, for sharing your story. We've been trying to get this out for since day one, and
Seven
thank you
years
for
now.
7 years now.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you telling your story on the Dopamine Train podcast. And hope the lessons learned, I would say, for our listeners is that be resilient. And even in the moment that you're like, this isn't worth it, I want to quit, that there might be something bright at the end that you're not foreseeing a year or 2 years or down the road that may come back to help you in that moment. And yeah, that's all I got. So
Thank you for having me.